Ukraine's counteroffensive, pushing back against Russian aggression. This is what we're going to talk about today. A little bit of news and update what is happening in Ukraine, in Russia, and in Crimea. Little bit of everything. And this is the theme of this video. Hello there, I'm Elena. This is my political channel Enough. Welcome to my channel. I want to say thank you to my current subscribers and viewers. I'm really grateful to you all for your comments, for your subscriptions, for your likes, because it helps to promote the channel and the videos. You are helping to spread the truth and help people to know things how they actually are, which is very important, especially in the time of the war, which is going on in Ukraine at this moment in time. And also, I want to a little bit tell you a couple things. Unfortunately, some sort of algorithms of YouTube doing some strange things. So sometimes if your comment disappeared, it doesn't mean that I deleted it. Most likely I didn't. It's done by YouTube. So maybe you should avoid to put links to something in your comments. Maybe write me a comment without it. And if you want to provide links, let me know when you're going to do it so I could save it right away. Because it just get deleted, unfortunately. Sorry about that. It's not my fault. So let's talk about our topic. I would say enough is enough. It's disheartening to witness, basically, armchair spectators sitting in front of their TVs with popcorn and waiting for some miraculous things happened in Ukraine. Let's look at them closely. Are they expecting miraculously that Ukraine, who doesn't have military aircrafts and stuff like that, and cannot do what United States can do, for example, if you saw my video about Wagner in Syria, the conflict between Wagner Group and the army of the United States, Ukraine can do that. Ukraine doesn't have air superiority, doesn't have F-16s or F-18s or whatever planes United States has, so this is not gonna happen. What those spectators expect, that Ukraine gonna soar above the minefields, which is the size of Florida. Russia had months and months, almost a year, to create a defense system and mine everything, and the minefields are that big. And they probably expecting just these people, that Ukrainian army soldiers just gonna fly above it like a birds. That's not gonna happen. So going through those minefields is a difficult task, time-consuming. Do they anticipate a nation who currently grappling with the aftermath of the massive destruction of Novokakhovka done by Russia and helping their own people and fighting with all of this and many other things in Ukraine, defending their people and so on? Do they expect that Ukraine will abandon its own people and march on Moscow? That's not gonna happen. Please keep in mind that this is not an endorsement on infallibility of Western media. I personally verify all the information I have, and rather than quote worthless rubbish, that is why, because of my years of research, I find out that Russia lies almost all the time, if not all the time, 100%. That is why I'm not quoting rubbish. I'm quoting verified information. And I providing the links to it so you can verify it yourself. This is what I do. And there was some sort of a increasing of the Russian propaganda lately, since the beginning, especially since the beginning of Ukrainian counteroffensive. And I want to talk about it in a different video. There would be a new video about propaganda, which I highly recommend, because my channel is fighting propaganda, not necessarily just Russian one, but at this point in time, Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda increased because Russia losing the war in Ukraine, basically lost. Putin just delaying the inevitable by throwing more and more people in the battle, just like a meat in the meat grinder. That's all. And there are so many, some sort of a lies about heavy losses of Ukraine. How much is the heavy losses? How many people heavy losses? How many casualties heavy losses? And Russia is attacking in this case. In Kupiansk region, for example, Ukraine attacking in some other regions of Ukraine. And of course, the side which is attacking will have losses and heavier than the side which is defending. But it's all nonsense because they say there is no gain for Ukraine just losing soldiers. None of it is true. That is why we need to talk about and see real military experts who are actually real military, real people, not some sort of a blogger sitting in the basement of his mother and mother's house and never been in the war, never done it. That is why in the end of this video, if you have time and patience, I'll show you a few channels of people who actually know what they're talking about. And let's see on the map, like very recently, not just now, I will talk about more fresh news than that, Ukraine liberated about 200 square kilometers of territory. It took Wagner and Russia more than 200 days to capture Bakhmut, for example. And Russia hold it as a great victory in some sort of a something like that. In a matter of weeks, Ukraine took a territory about 4 or 5 Bakhmuts, liberated the territory, about 4 or 5 Bakhmuts. Yet Russia presented it such a big, huge victory. And no serious military expert, nobody, from any respectable country, predicted a quick victory of Ukraine. If I said sometimes that, yeah, Ukraine, when they get tanks and get this and get that, it could be faster. Yes, it could be, but it doesn't mean it's gonna happen like previously in Liman, Izum and stuff like that. Because Russia had almost a year, a lot of time to prepare minefields, and they're big. And to demine it safely and move their troops, it takes a long time. So there wouldn't be very quick advances and stuff like that. Unless Ukraine do something which I'm not gonna reveal here because it's only my ideas, and in case for some reason Ukraine decide to follow it, I'm trying not to say too much, just not to reveal too much sensitive information. And because Ukraine asked not to. That is why I'm not the blogger who is talking about attacks on the front all the time. I'm talking about lots of different things because of my experience. I haven't been on the battlefield. That is why I don't have experience of that. That is why I rely on certain experts, which I verified for a long time, to be able to be trustworthy sources. But since I was from USSR and Russia and live in Canada for over 19 years and travel the world and have information and friends all over Ukraine and all over Russia, that is why my perspective as a person who lived in USSR and experienced it all on myself could be valuable. And it is valuable, according to many of my subscribers and sources who are reading me on Quora and so on. But nevertheless, my point is that nobody of serious, real experts predicted swift victory of Ukraine, in that it happened all of a sudden miraculously within days. Let's look at the deep state map, and this is from August 10th, for example. Let's see what is happening. There is little bit counteroffensive from Russia going on near Kupiansk, and my friend's friend lives there, and unfortunately they get shelled every day basically. So by today, the last information from August 13th, Russia made a bit of a progress here, but they couldn't do anything much, and they couldn't capture Kupiansk, and they have to now take the troops from here and move them into different place, because there are several hotspots along here where Ukraine actually gaining land, gaining territory, and liberating towns, and Russia kind of have to move from there. One thing, there is information about gaining in here. I can't say it's completely confirmed, but it's already on the map, so I could consider it confirmed enough. And this is what was happening near Urozhaynaya. It sounds like Ukraine liberated Urozhaynaya. And by the last, this is what the last information in here. A bit more gains in here. You can look at the map, and there are lots of military experts who already, and military bloggers who already talk about it, so I won't talk about it all that much. Near Oleshki, there is movements, and there is information that Ukrainians get on the other side of the river and kind of hold in some places. But it's not complete counteroffensive, and it's just kind of probing the ground, I would say. And there is no official information that they really gonna do much in this kind of area. This is information from Alexei Goncharenko. It's in Russian, so I translate some, and I'll show you little pieces of his video when he's talking about different success on the front, and that Russians are losing key places, and attack on Crimea, and the burning of some sort of storages of ammunition, and so on. This is Ukrainian politician Alexei Goncharenko. I verified lots of his information, and it's true, and also I never posted things which I didn't confirm from many different sources. In one day, lots of things happened, like Russian fighter jet Su-30 fell down just all of a sudden. In Crimea, there were several explosions, and storage of ammunition blew up. Also was force attack on Crimean bridge a day ago, and it was all in the smoke. Russia denying that the bridge was damaged and saying it just they trying to, by smoke, they trying to, I don't know, cover something up, or, but it says expect delays, and Chuck Farrer is quite reliable source, and also he said that they were intercepted incoming Ukrainian missiles, Russian saying, but the fires have been reported burning on both road span and rail spans. So Russia is lying, highly likely. This is Crimean bridge. This is Crimea, and also 17 drones flew to Russian military base in Евпатория, Crimea.
Он полетел, как ты поймешь, куда-то в бухту. Он за туда на 12-й полетел. Паш, куда они стреляют?
Может, там еще.
The family discussing in Russian when they're shooting it and what is happening. This is storage burning in Kherson region, Russian occupied.
Наум идет.
And this fire is in Oleshki, I showed you. They were shooting at the group of Russian, big groups of Russian soldiers and troops. So this is how it's burning. Around Tavria, on the Tavria way, basically, there are several places where Ukrainians are doing a counteroffensive, as they said, and I have a video with Roman Svitan, Ukrainian military expert, for example, in the past, whenever he was talking about how Ukraine gonna liberate their territories. And so far, Ukraine going according to whatever he said. And so on one of the places on the line of fire, basically, between Russia, Ukrainians, in the last 24 hours, Russia lost 240 people dead and wounded. And it is just one part of that whole big line on the map, which between battlefield between Russia and Ukraine. Another reliable sources is the Institute for the Study of War. And according to them, Ukrainian forces conducted counteroffensive operations on at least 2 sectors of the front in August 13th and reportedly advanced on western Donetsk, eastern Zaporizhia Oblast or region, and in western Zaporizhia region or Oblast, that's how it sounds in Ukrainian or in Russian. And they conducted offensive operations and achieved partial success near Rabotny and so on. You guys can read it yourself. According to them, they don't have confirmation that Russian forces have completely withdrawn from Urozhaynaya. And they think Russian forces currently maintain position at least in southern part of the settlement, but according to Ukrainian sources, the whole Urozhaynaya liberated. We will see how it goes when we get more confirmation on that. This is Ukrainian expert Roman Svitan I was talking about, and he was talking about counteroffensive as well a little bit. So I base my information on several military experts, and Roman Svitan just one of them. And this is Aleshki, where the Russians lost some men, and I showed you just now. So that Urozhaynaya was a strategic point, and basically Ukrainian army now coming towards that famous line of Surovikin, line of defense and so on. So Ukraine is moving forward, and Ukrainian counteroffensive is going well. And this is a group of mobilized Russian soldiers whining again.
Алексей Евгеньевич, обращаясь в комитет солдатских матерей нашим женам и сестрам и другим правозащитным органам Российской Федерации. Мы мобилизованы батальона 1822.
He's appealing to the committee of soldiers' mothers and to their wives and sisters and to whoever gonna listen that they are mobilized people who dumped in the front without training whatsoever, that they only were used for moving things around and dig trenches or something like that. And then all of a sudden they ended up on the front, without any support and without any... They don't have water for several days, they don't have food and so on. And there are so many of this. And all these people apparently doesn't have a brain in their head to find out that they shouldn't be in this war in the first place. That's what Russia does to its soldiers and people. This is what's happening. And instead of take the arms in their hands and go fight Moscow, go fight Putin's gang of usurper of Russia, Putin, his oligarchs, who send them in that senseless war to kill other people for no reason whatsoever, well, they whining. They saying that they're okay to fight, they would like to fight with weapons, preferably. And food, and water, and everything. This video from near Bakhmut, how Russia dumped their people, wounded people, forgot about them, and that's Ukrainians find the Russian wounded officer.
Зазначений квадрат. Откуда сам?
Из Московской области.
Where are you from? I am from Moscow region. So they find wounded Russian soldier who was wounded previous night, and nobody picked him up. And what Ukrainians do, they take them and fix them and exchange onto their captured soldiers and stuff like that. So this is what happens. This is captured Russian Major Tomov, who is giving some information to Ukrainians after he was captured.
Да. Копье.
Юра, все малюй, тільки максимально коректно.
Somebody saying in Ukrainian, draw everything maximum with maximum precision, where is what and so on. So he cooperating with Ukrainian forces. And what Russia does when there is no success on the front, they killing civilians. On this post, Julia Mendel saying, about 20 kilometers from the village of my childhood. It's the road we used to take every weekend to visit my grandmother. And it's Kherson region. Russia whacked Kherson region. 7 people died, include 2 little children, One child was only 23 days old. That little girl was killed. She wasn't even live on this planet for a month. And this is what's happening. And that woman is writing, I don't know how to forgive, I don't know how to forget, I don't know how to justify. There is no justification of this. And Ukrainians will not forget that or forgive. So, talking about Ukrainian counteroffensive in general. This is a bit old article, but it's still true. About Ukrainian counteroffensive failure reports are nonsense, says retired US general. So one of the good, reliable experts is Ben Hodges, the former commander of US Army Europe. So he's a real Lieutenant General, retired. He told Newsweek, and in this article you can read about that, that concerns about Ukraine's so-called slow progress and reported high casualties in the opening phase, it should be tempered by military realities, I quote, and not shaped by Russian disinformation. And this is absolutely true. He is saying that slow offensive pace is not a cause for concern. And I agree with him. And so many other real military experts says that. And Hodges said 90% of Ukraine heavy armored and NATO-trained formations have not yet joined the battle. Just imagine when the other 19% start getting into the fight, he said. At the time of the article, Mr. Hodges was saying that just very, very small part of Ukrainian army is in the fight. And he cautioned against narrative whiplash. Everybody was praising Ukrainian soldiers for how resilient they were and how poorly the Russians have done. Now all of a sudden the Ukrainians are falling, the Russians are winning. What kind of immature, childish sort of analysis is that? Let allow the professionals do their job. That's what says General Hodges, and he's right. He said that there is a difference between the offensive and the main attack. The offensive has started, but the main attack, they're still waiting to see where the cracks are, where the vulnerabilities are. So who harbors those unrealistic expectations, and why Ukraine supposed to meet them? Ukraine isn't Russia or Wagner. It won't recklessly sacrifice its troops just to please some spectators on TV, who are sitting in front of TV with a popcorn and waiting something happens. And Ukraine wouldn't toss their soldiers into meat grinder. Instead, Ukraine continues to pressure Russia and Russia's front lines in various areas. And there is also a very interesting video, Is Ukraine Counteroffensive Falling, done by Broe, which is former military, and he does a really good job on reporting on Ukraine. So I would recommend his channel and several videos of his. And even Russian propagandists discuss that Russia had a shortage of officers in the army. I can quote that Ukraine continues to apply pressure to Russia's front line in numerous areas, and they have liberated more territory in the previous to the video of Broe week than Russia has captured in Donbass region in the past 6 months. In this video, Broe comparing Ukrainian counteroffensive with Operation Overlord. At the time of the video would be 4 minutes 31 seconds, of the Allies' invasion of Normandy to liberate it from Nazi Germany. And this put things into perspective. If you want to see it, this is the good place to go and see it. When considered combined forces of the British Empire and the New World, combined forces liberated certain territories and how it compared to what Ukraine does. And in this video, very useful to see that basically Russian Kremlin State TV, and this is channel Russia 1, admitted to taking horrendous losses of their junior officers. So they have been graduating military cadets in a hurry, as well as giving field promotions to sergeants to make them into officers, because they're just running out of people. And I can add for myself that they don't have rotation for Russian army whatsoever right now. and the situation in Russian army is really, really bad. This is one of my videos. Prigozhin admits truth and lies about the war in Ukraine. Even Prigozhin was Putin's chef and Putin's commander of the Wagner. Even he, who Putin made in a little czar of his little own army, he confirmed my words, what I said about right now, about the Ukraine and about Russian losses and about terrible situation in Russian army. In this video, Russian lawyer talking to the Ukrainian journalist and military man Taras Berezovets. I watch him quite a bit. It's in Russian or in Ukrainian sometimes. But even Berezovets is saying that there is no push in Ukraine by other countries to go to the table and sit down with Russia and Putin. It's all up to Ukraine, and Ukrainians know that. So whatever is Russian propaganda right now, it's very hard pushing the narrative that Ukrainian counteroffensive is failing and that Ukrainians lose a lot of people. It's not true. That some other countries trying to twist Ukrainian arms and put them on the table with Russia, this is not true either. And Ukrainians know that it's up to Ukraine to go to the table and to have some sort of agreements if Ukraine choose to. But at this point, according to Berezovets and to many other Ukrainians and many military experts, there is nothing to talk about. There is no deal on the table. Putin doesn't offer them anything because he is thinking he's winning, which is not true. And that is why there is no point to talk about things which isn't happening. There is no deal on the table. None. And there is no point, absolutely no point, to talk to Putin because Putin lies all the time. He doesn't keep any agreements. He doesn't obey international laws. None of his words mean anything. And in my video about propaganda, I'll show you a lot of his words. And he lied all the time. There is no point to even talk with Putin. But again, it's up to Ukraine to decide. So everyone, please to be patient. Do not push Ukraine to the table of any negotiations with Russia. Ukraine will know when to do it and how to do it. And there is peace plan which proposed by Ukraine, by President of Ukraine, and there was a meeting in Saudi Arabia I was talking about recently in one of my videos, when there are things which Ukraine need to achieve, and one of them is completely clearing Russian troops from the Ukrainian territory. And Russia take its army back to home from all the territories of Ukraine from 1991. And Ukrainian soldiers are not the gladiators to die for our pleasure and entertainment. Please remember that, and Ukraine will decide how to go about their counteroffensive. Please support Ukraine. Thank you for watching my videos, and have a great day or evening.